What's up, you guys? It's Miami Knight, your Master Grief Educator and Trainer, coming to you today with a session on grief. Talking to my friend here, Angel Smith, on her day for her interview here on It's the Miami Knight Show Grief Talk. Angel is the wife of Myron Smith. She's a survivor fellow working with Everytown Survivor Network as a gun violence prevention voice. That's right. She shares her story here today, advocating for common gun sense laws. So let's welcome. On the evening of August 31st, 2019, the Smith family lives forever change. Myron Smith was shot and killed in a barbershop in Savannah, Georgia. Wife Angel Smith, proud mother, shared two children, Dallas and Bella, with her late husband, now identifying as survivors of gun violence. Angel states, "My life is constantly evolving as I attempt to navigate this new norm that is extremely abnormal." She's a full-time nursing student to become a trauma nurse, furthering her advocacy as a voice in the medical community for the disproportionate and underrepresented victims of gun violence. She's the youngest sibling of 8. Their upbringing is rooted in Christian principles. Angel states, "My spirit, though broken, is hanging on to hope for brighter days." She's a new member for the Everytown for Gun Safety Survivor Network and Moms Demand Action. Angel has been featured on Fox 28 Savannah local news station in honor of Myron's 49th birthday memorial tribute to share his story, teaching their community about the consequences of violence. Let's welcome her. Welcome back, Grief Nation listeners. And today on this series, which I'm calling The Oath, I have Angel Smith. Angel Smith, she's the wife of Myron Smith. She's a survivor fellow with the Everytown Survivor Network, a gun violence prevention advocate and voice for common sense gun laws. Hi, Angel. How are you?
I am well.
So
Thank you
good
so
to
much
see
for
you.
having me.
Oh, you're welcome. It's so good to see you finally.
Good to see you as well.
So, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling really good.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I want to jump right into the interview. So, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you became a homicide survivor of a violent crime.
As you previously mentioned, I am the wife or to my late husband, Myron Smith, and our journey came to be in August of 2019. Um, we basically had just come off of vacation, and I was here in South Carolina, me and the children, and on my way down, thinking that it was just going to be a normal Saturday for us. We had plans on going out to dinner. I got a phone call that my husband had been shot, and that no one knew exactly the details surrounding it, but that I should make it to Savannah as quickly as possible.
Wow. That phone call is always the dread of our life.
Yep.
Uh, what did you do immediately after you hung up the phone? Where were you? Where was your mind?
So I was actually driving and on the interstate. I was on
No,
95.
no.
And of course, the person that called didn't have any, I guess they just didn't think, to kind of like do a climate check before dropping that type of life shattering bomb. But I became numb, honestly. Everything in my being escaped me. Um, Prior to that phone call, I viewed life as never really safe, but I had a mindset of, hey, you do the right thing, you live by the precepts and the principles, that those type of things. I guess I felt like I never saw that happening. I just couldn't see it coming in a million years. So I immediately just went to what I knew, and that was God. Um, I prayed that the Lord and all of his angels just were present in that moment, and not for me, but for him. So I was praying for his safety. And of course, we immediately pray a prayer of faith because no one wants to accept that your loved one is here one moment and gone the next. So it was the longest hour and 43 minutes, I think it was, of my life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So
no one could
thankful.
pay me to even really be able to put words in a place that even my heart, I couldn't feel anything.
Mhm.
It was really life shattering.
I'm so thankful that you were saved. And I love that you said to do a climate check. And see, these are things that people don't understand or I guess because the shock of it all, even to the individual that called you, um, just didn't have just shocked, you
Yeah,
know. Um, and that's kind of imperative for us to teach one another. Hey, if
mhm,
you're calling me with some, yes, do a climate check
yes,
or just make sure that where I am. I mean, I
yeah,
know that it's hard at the time because you're just not thinking,
right,
but that's a good message for us to put out there. Hey, if you're going to be delivering some news that's life altering,
yep,
um, make sure I'm okay and in a safe space to
right,
be able to
yeah,
accept this.
right,
And I know that the individual is just doing what they thought that they need to do, and it just
yep,
make sure that his wife, you got to contact.
correct,
Yeah.
right,
I get it, I get it,
yep,
but it's a good idea to do
it
exactly
is,
what you stated. So thank you for
right,
sharing that. Thank you so
right.
much. What were some of the emotional and physical reactions becoming a bereaved widow, and how do you feel about that name? How do you feel about that attachment of widow? Before I even go even further.
So, so interesting that you asked me that because I really despise it.
Mm,
I despise it simply because all of us that are on this journey, no one, just like my big sister and survivor sister, Javanya, we always say it like, if someone asked us to volunteer,
mhm.
we wouldn't. And I'm a huge advocate for grace. And
Amen.
in the word widow, to me, it lacks the grace of God because it's almost like it's looked upon in a dark light, like a
Mm,
black widow, if you
mhm,
would, a
mhm.
spider,
Yeah,
who
yeah, yeah,
some
yeah.
people love spiders, but most people don't. But, at this point, I accept it as just a part of the journey. But prior to, like, once everything first happened, um, a friend of mine from the area, Savannah, and this is where the incident took place. She connected me with my big sister and survivor sister, and we just had a conversation, and this was over text.
Mhm.
Conversation literally opened my heart because I became so guarded. I
Yeah.
became angry.
Mhm.
Um, I was angry because at that time I was a 33-year-old wife and nursing student that felt like, how does this happen? And no, I didn't feel like I was better than it. I didn't feel like, I can't say I felt like it, not that it couldn't happen to me, but that it wouldn't
Yeah.
because, of the way that our life was set up, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So immediately I had to reconcile and understand that as a survivor of gun violence, not just me, but every survivor, no one asks for this. It's a faith walk. And so I had a conversation with God after that text with my survivor sister. And I said, Lord, if I give these things to you, if I commit them to you, I know that you're God enough to keep them. So I came honest to
Mhm.
God.
Mhm.
And I admitted that I was angry,
Mhm.
that I, at that time, had an arm baby and a 3-year-old that was
Right.
looking for dad to come home. And by every reasonable rationale, that should have happened.
Mhm.
Um, I just had to reconcile all of the what ifs and the maybes. And you know how we go through that working out the day, we backtrack in our heads, the shoulda, coulda, wouldas.
Mhm.
Um, I felt confused
Yeah.
after all of that. And I knew it was something that I knew it was something I could not do alone. So I just gave it to God. And I said, hey, I don't know when I'll be better. I don't know when I'll see, any light in this very dark tunnel, but I was just committed to hoping,
Yeah.
hoping to get through it better than how I was at that time, because I really was bitter.
Mhm. Mhm.
I was very bitter because
Mhm.
it's a very bitter pill to swallow,
Yeah.
to go from normalcy to what is extremely abnormal, and
Mhm.
to live in a society where gun violence at large, not just, black on black crime, not domestic violence, but just overall. I mean, even school shootings, gun violence from what I've experienced is extremely normalized now. We
Mhm.
don't see the big headlines as we once did anymore because it has happened so much. So it
Mhm.
was just uh, I was flooded with emotions and feelings, if you would. So it was just, I had to give it to God because I knew it was so heavy.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it on my own.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing all of that, because all of that is common
Hmm.
for us to experience in our own way.
Yeah.
And I think the purpose of me having this show, the purpose of you sharing your story, is so that individuals can understand that even though we are all along this path,
Hmm.
which we definitely didn't sign up for, but we're here, um, all of our walks look different.
Yeah.
And we have to do what's best for us at the time and through the walk,
Yeah.
because this is not something that um, is understandable on a daily basis. It changes so often, and like you talked about, each different emotion that you have,
Yeah.
um, giving it to God, and working on what that looks like for you, because it changes from day to day. Because it's like you mentioned, all of the cycles of the grief process that are nonlinear, that
Yeah.
goes here one day and the next, you'll have a different one. You can have several in one day, or you can have not any at all.
Right.
But I think for me, discovering what those grief cycles were, I was just happy to understand that this was something, it was a roadmap for me to understand what I was experiencing, because without the education of knowing that, and I'm so glad it's more talked about and more mental health is talked about, and just the
Yeah.
process of grieving itself, because we wasn't raised to even understand that.
Nope.
You,
We
you
were
you
raised to
know,
not even talk about
right,
our
right,
feelings, just to show up. And, life happens, all of those type
right.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to be a traumatic situation. Who is ready to even discuss that? First of all, I'm trying to figure out, hey, I'm going through this thing and what my life looks like now. And like you said, you have an arm baby, you're in school, you had a lot um, to think about outside of yourself first,
Yes.
So the healing process for you, I'm so glad to see that, the walk for you is exactly what it is for you, and you're making it your best. So thank you for showing up each day,
Yeah.
to be your authentic self and helping others at the same time. Um, what have you done to adapt outside? I know you say you gave it to God, you became hopeful. Um, but what are some of the things, what have you done to adapt to your traumatic loss is one. And when did you decide to do something differently because of this unique situation that you experienced? Was it
So
immediate?
it was not.
Okay.
It absolutely was not. I was so overwhelmed with hurt immediately. Um, mm, I was consumed with the trauma of it all. I said I wasn't even going to talk about that because I didn't feel strong enough to, but I have to, because
Yes.
because as well as I do, immediately as a mother, as a spouse, we feel like we place ourselves in that moment, and that alone can be earth shattering. So outside of, to be honest, I can't say that it was immediate. It wasn't 4 months. It wasn't 6 months.
Hmm.
Um, It was more, I would say maybe around 9 months, I kind of just came into knowing that what I was doing was not serving me. It
Mhm.
wasn't serving my children, and that um, in counseling, my therapist, she used this parallel, and she likened, just marriages in life to being in the middle of the ocean. No one wants to be stuck in the middle of the ocean. It's our desire to make it to the other side. But unknowingly, we don't know who's going to be with us on the other side. But because that has always been the goal for both my late husband and myself, for our family, I felt that there was no one else to do that but me. So I kind of just had to gather myself and really, really pull deep to say, hey, yes, I am going to live. No, I'm not going to let anger consume me, for the fact that understanding there is no justice on
Mhm.
this side of heaven,
Mhm.
because I had a conversation with someone that really made that plain to me. And when it became plain here,
Yeah.
eventually it resonated in my heart.
Right.
And so once that happened, I was like, okay, I can do this. The
Yeah.
conversation in here in the house became different with me and the kids. And it was just like almost a ray of sunshine that I could feel.
Mhm.
That I accepted feeling, because all before it was as if I was just resistant to the grief process, because grief is the final act of love for someone that you lose, and it never
Absolutely.
goes away.
Mhm.
So I just kind of chose to tap into every resource that I knew, but
Mhm.
I was just resistant to. So that's why even now I can speak,
Yeah.
I can somewhat hold myself together, because it's like pain is taken on purpose.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah. I love that. It's almost like that aha moment.
yep,
I visually was able to see you and your spot over the water. Just but in the water, but over the water. This vision that you the words that you spoke, I was able to visually see that union of you and your spouse over the water. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful water. And that definitely was a breakthrough for you as you were saying it. I could feel it. I mean, I could literally feel the energy of that. And um, it's those moments that I cherish so much because they're so simple
yep,
for when the connection clicks
yeah,
for you. So thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Because a lot of times I think individuals who are along this process, they could have gotten it, but they let it go. They didn't hold on to it like
yep,
you did because it when you finally made that connection, it was like, oh, ah,
right.
and something was lifted.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like on birthdays, I could finally feel I could feel his spirit.
Yeah.
All before, I was so hurt. I'm like, I want, my husband here. I want my kid's father here. And of course, you can't wish it away. You can't, it's life. And once part of life comes, it's done. So finally, it's like if Dallas does something around the house,
Hmm.
I can share a smile in my heart, with my late husband. And those are the moments that really get me over.
Oh, oh, amen. I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
And you did talk about you were in therapy. Would
Mhm.
you like to share about just your experience with that and how, um, you know, how did you even come to the point that you said, you know what, I need to speak to someone?
Yeah. So therapy was extremely instrumental and therapeutic, because I knew what I was feeling. It was festering.
Hmm.
And, having an understanding of emotional and physical manifestations, I knew I needed help. I was resistant because our journeys are so personal to us,
Yeah,
and it's not something that's like, I don't want to talk about this with, just anyone.
yeah,
So I did some research and I found someone whose, spiritual convictions align with mine. And, I was able to just tap into receiving
yeah,
coping skills. Because at that point, what I was doing, just being honest, I had to take pills to sleep.
Yeah.
I slept all day. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if I heard my kids crying, it was like, okay, I felt like helpless, if you would.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I felt like the longer I stayed that way, the longer that is what it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want that for
Right.
me or my kids. So,
Yeah. Wow. How did you feel about becoming and still becoming a better woman in this process? Or how do you feel about that?
hmm, again, bittersweet,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, okay, Lord, I could have become a better woman in so many other ways,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but it kind of just goes for, once we start this journey, it's ashes. I think anyone will be honest and say that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, tapping into understanding the exchange that he promises to give us beauty for
Yeah.
ashes.
Mm-hmm.
I accepted that. And so with the journey comes a lot of lessons. It comes blessings, because
Yeah.
the blessing is knowing now that I can talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And whether we've ever physically met, our hearts are completely aligned,
Absolutely.
because I can look at you, you can look at me, and I
Mm-hmm.
know how it may feel. You know what I'm saying? I can somewhat imagine. So
Mm-hmm.
those are big blessings to me. So now I'm acceptant of, just day by day becoming better through my experiences on this journey. But again, before, I can't say that was the case. But
Yeah.
now I totally receive it. And it's just one of the gems that I take.
Thank you. Thank you. I love how you said that. Okay, so let's talk about your advocacy work that you've
Mhm.
committed your life to. Share your experience with joining Moms Demand Action in Everytown, the fellowship.
Yeah, so I'm right on the beginning of my journey with the organizations, but I'm so hopeful.
Yeah.
I attended a Zoom meeting about 3 weeks ago, right when I began the fellowship. And
Mm-hmm.
to understand the work, first of all of us that are now survivors, we may have some similar stories, but
Mm-hmm.
the root of the matter, our sentiments are going to be different. But my heart was pleased with knowing that all bases are covered,
Yeah.
from gun sense to just overall increasing awareness. I'm excited to be a part of that, because one of the other things, like we previously mentioned, that's difficult to be on this journey is knowing that gun violence is so prevalent. So to be able to get involved and get active in actually pushing for legislation that's going to change the narrative, that means everything to me. And
Absolutely.
I can't even begin to tell you. So to be a part of that a network of like-minded individuals
Mm-hmm.
is a blessing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Stay tuned. It's the Miami Night Show. We'll be right back.
Frederick Myron Smith was a native of Savannah, Georgia, born to Mr. and Mrs. Freddie Lee Smith, an only child, friend to many, and favorite cousin to all of his cousins and family members. Myron's passions were many, but to sum them up, I'd say faith, family, football, and fitness. Out of all of these, his greatest passion was his role as a father and son. Nothing lit his eyes larger than the sight of his parents and his children. He was gifted with many talents, but most notably, he could draw anything with one look and calculate square roots in his head. Not to mention, he could make anyone laugh at the drop of a dime. To know him was to love him and appreciate his many layers and his ability to adapt to life no matter the circumstance. Myron loved with his whole heart. Anyone he called friend was more like family. He often wished he had siblings, and although they were not blood couldn't make them any closer. To name some of his childhood friends were Jason Wellard and family, Dwayne Simmons, Chris Brown, Chris Jacobs, also known as Little Chris, and Sean Bass. Myron graduated from Sol C. Johnson High School. Shortly after, life took an unfortunate turn. Myron made choices that cost him 13 years of his life to prison. During this time, he became extremely determined to live a life of purpose. Upon his release in 2008, he got accepted to Savannah State University's College of Engineering, and in 2012 obtained a Bachelor's of Science in Environmental Engineering. Graduating magna cum laude and as a distinguished student, he was offered to address his fellow classmates and wrote a commencement speech entitled, "If it is meant to be, it's up to me." Life began to skyrocket, and in 2014, Myron was offered a position and served as an air management and compliance engineer with the Department of Natural Resources, one of few minorities in the state to serve in this capacity. His life was a true testament to making mistakes, but not allowing those mistakes to define you or limit your possibilities for restoration and greatness. Myron was taken from us 3 months before what would have been his 5th year anniversary as an air management engineer with the DNR. Myron, my forever love, father of our children, a gentle giant, a man that should be here today. I pause to honor your brilliance and highlight the immeasurable void of losing you. My life and the lives of survivors of gun violence everywhere are one of the main reasons we all share to do our part to end gun violence. Forever, Myron, real love never ends, it transcends.
And I have this question that I definitely wanted to dive into because um, of the unknown of what's to come with gun violence and just what has happened, in our world just within this year, with the deaths of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery. As a Black woman in America with little brown children, with milestone conversations that you will have with your children at some point regarding social injustices. What do you think in that time? And I know it's not a rush for them to grow up, but just being a mother of Black children, what do you think that the conversation will be like having those how do you feel about having those conversations with your son and your daughter?
I feel that as unfortunate as it is, it's a requirement. We don't have the luxury to not have that conversation. And in all transparency, all walks of life, again, every socioeconomic status, gun violence crosses it all. So
Yeah.
for that reason, I never not have that conversation. For instance, even with my 4-year-old son, he loves hoodies.
Mm-hmm.
Every jacket I buy, he's like, "Mom, does it have a hoodie?" I'm like, okay, but hey, he likes that. As
Yeah.
innocent as it is.
Yeah.
But immediately my mind goes to understanding that that could be taken wrong one day. So I know that I'm going to have that conversation. So I get him his hoodies now. But I
Yeah.
let Dallas, as soon as we enter the building, please pull your hoodie down.
Yeah.
Because I have a heightened awareness.
Mm-hmm.
My heart immediately goes to even the moment with his father and how, just the smallest, most innocent things could be taken wrong.
Yeah.
So the conversation has to be had, and not just with my children, even with my nephews. I let them know that as Black men, it's their responsibility to truly learn how to navigate the world in a way that will allow them to stay safe and come home.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. Oh, that gave me chills. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So how did the pandemic this year, how did that reshape your life? And it's still going. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. So immediately, um, it was very difficult. It
Mm-hmm.
was difficult because for me, as it takes a while to move yourself out of the role of a spouse when that is what you were.
Yeah.
So again, I felt so vulnerable. I knew that God is always there. I have a mom that prays so much and tries her best to keep us all covered. But I felt very vulnerable, because I'm like, I literally went from one tragedy, that the fall before, to a pandemic with two small children. And so I was fighting feelings of depression and a lot of different things that the pandemic brought along. I actually contracted the virus. So me and my children, we were here, and it was a scary, scary, scary time.
Wow.
That coupled with gun violence being on the rise, all of it was very unnerving, if you would. Because it was just like we have a pandemic on our hands, and then we have this rise in protests. We have Jacob Blake. We have the incident with King Von, the rapper. Just the prior year, we had Nipsey Hussle. So it was all just overwhelming. It was so overwhelming. And so just in time, just imploring those coping skills.
Yeah. So how do you feel about the Biden-Harris transition? And I'm going to ask you if you could speak to President-elect Joe Biden and Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, what would be one of the most pressing issues and concerns for them to address for you?
Well, one, I feel that the transition, I'm thankful, that we are here in this space. Is time has been up for a lot of things that we've experienced, but I'm thankful that we can somewhat breathe a little bit. The transition, I'm hopeful that, everyone makes all of these grand and grandiose promises on the campaign trail. Just like President-elect Biden often said that we are in a battle for the soul of this nation. If I could say anything to him, I would remind him of that statement. And I will remind him of the disproportionate rate that colored people like you and myself, that we're in the battle for our lives, that in that every promise that has been made, finally, we're on the brink. We're hoping for change in Georgia with gun sense law and just senators that are going to push that. I will remind them that that is the work that is necessary, because it is what is going to reshape the world around us. So that would be the conversation. That would be what is most important to me, to not allow the hype of President Trump and all the scandals to overshadow what's really important. And what's important is that we truly have equality. So that would be, we have equality, and that your grandchildren, your children, my children, that we can coexist in a world and feel safe. That's a baseline human right, and that has to be restored. So that's what I would advocate for.
Come on, sister. I see you on the campaign trail to yourself coming soon, even though you're going to be in nursing school. I hear it in your voice. I love it. Come on, sis. Oh, love it, love it, love it. So what is your oath being a part of this fellowship and sharing your story as often as you can share it, and having these mixed emotions of your journey? What's your call to action?
My call to action is through everything. I think I don't really care for using the word loss, but I'll say it just for context. I think every loss brings about a duty and a responsibility, and mine is to stay true. To stay true to my journey, stay true to myself, stay true to God, but to stay true and present to the world around me. And that's what will always keep me hoping and advocating for gun sense law, for just increasing the awareness in our communities that we have to get it together. My call to action is to never give up. I plan to be as active as I can in the organizations, and I truly I hope that my life and my journey is a light to someone that one day, unfortunately, is going to come behind me, but that can see, well, hey, she made it, and I can too.
Absolutely. And I heard you mention That was beautifully said, by the way. I heard you mention that you don't like to say the word loss. Okay, that's a euphemism that a lot of people may say passed away. Some may say transition. Some may say died. What is the better word for you? Because I want you to identify what that word is for you so that you use that word and not have to
Yeah.
worry about loss or whatever.
Yeah.
It's your voice. So what's the word that
Right.
you like to use?
Um, that is something that I'm still discovering.
Okay.
The contention with loss is that, you
It
know,
is what it is. It,
right. And that, I know a lot of people, even myself, but it's like I can lose an earring,
yeah.
you know, I
Hmm.
didn't lose my husband, he was taken away.
Absolutely.
Um,
There we go. Right there.
so, so, so that's my kind of like, I'm like,
Hmm.
hold up, something about that doesn't connect here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and even transition, I can agree with that because spiritually we do transition. And
Hmm.
I've
Yeah.
been teetering, accepting, just using that word.
Hmm. I'm so glad
Yeah.
to have that conversation because there's so many people feel that way, and don't and haven't had and haven't spoken up about it. So I'm glad that even
Hmm.
came up. When I get ready to even get in a headspace to do the podcast, I expect to show up and be present and bring out what needs to be brought up. Even though that's so simple, somebody else is gonna get that.
I thank you for that. That helped me on today. I received that because as much as I look forward to this, it was this little eerie feeling that was making me anxious. So I thank you so much for that.
Oh, you're so welcome. Let's talk about this nurse journey. And every time I see something about nursing, an individual in school, because I have a girlfriend that's also in school too right now, I can't. I'm in nursing school. What is that journey like?
That the journey mm, is it has its rewards, I can say, because it's an honor to be able to even enter the field, to have the space to do that.
Yeah.
um, and I can say what keeps me going is I know that one day I may be able to hold the hand of a spouse that was once in my shoes, or someone
Mm.
I would bring more than just medical understanding and service. I'd be able to have an aligned heart with someone just like me. So that is what keeps me going, because the journey to becoming
Yeah.
is very, very rough.
Ooh, yes, yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
very rough.
Thank
Yeah.
you for
But I
sharing.
think, I think, yeah, I think, we only make up 5% of the whole medical field. Whereas when we think about gun violence and we think about the disproportionate rate of our Black men in critical situations,
Mhm.
that needs to change. So that is what keeps me going on this journey.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that too. And I had asked you to share a personal quote and let us know why that's so important to you.
I have quite a few, but I would say this particular quote is important to me. I'm trying to remember which one I chose. The Job, the scripture that when he has tested me, that I'll come forth as gold. Um, that is my mantra, because on every end of life, I think we all are tested. It's not just me, but it's the hope, it's the speaking it, that even the thing that we can't see, it it just forces your spirit to align with hope. And so I know that going through something as traumatic as I am going through for me and my kids, it's a faith walk every single day. I feel tested in my spirit. I feel tested, emotionally, physically, I feel tested, but it's just hanging on to that hope, that in the promises that I know are there from God. It's what really, really navigates my life.
Absolutely. And leave us with one of your favorite memories of Myron.
Oof,
Mhm.
that is that's a good one. I would say my fondest memory was of Myron and I being bored in the house. He left for a minute. I didn't know what he was doing. I thought maybe he had just gone to the store. But he came back with this little wagon looking thing. He hooked it up to the back of his bike. I got on my bike. He threw Dallas in the back, and we went for a beautiful bike ride. We had so much fun. We laughed, we talked, and we were able to just get out and connect. So that's one of my fondest memories.
Oh, and you just light up when you speak
Yeah,
about it.
it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, you truly light up just speaking about him. So, uh, so dear, so dear. And what does this phrase mean for you as a part of your journey until death do us part? What does that mean for you? Speaking to other women that have lost their husbands, their spouses, their wives, um, what does that mean for you now?
That means until death do us part. I would say that means, for one, I would put it in context to physically, physically doing you away from your spouse. But to any spouse, what I would say is I would accept until death do us part. But I would also encourage them to tap into knowing that real love never parts. We keep it in our hearts. And so I would ask that they just tap into knowing that, and keeping the oneness in their heart with their spouse, because there is a way to do that and accept that they have physically transitioned. So that's what I would say to any spouse, because we don't marry with this plan. We don't have a contingency plan for our losing our loved one or them transitioning. So I would just say the one thing for me is I held on because I simply didn't. I held on because I did not want to let go. And I will let them know that you absolutely don't have to. You don't have to.
Yeah.
You can hang on.
Yeah. And I absolutely feel, and to death do us part doesn't mean that it's over.
No.
It doesn't. I still have, even though I'm speaking in terms of my son after I lost my son, I still have a relationship with him because I create the atmosphere too. And it allows them to come in and spirit to come in and to guide me and lead me, no matter if, things changes down the line and you ever get remarried, you still will have that ability to have his spirit there. You have children. So, I don't think that it has to end.
It doesn't.
It
It
just did on a
absolutely does.
physical plane, but not, spiritually.
Yep.
Yeah. So thank you so much. So what, if I ask you, grief is, and what would you say to what grief is or has been for you?
I would say that grief is a journey of unknowns that's covered by grace.
And you can also add to that. What, if you could add to that for me, grief is not.
Oof. Grief is not the end. It's the beginning of something more, I don't want to say more meaningful, but it is the beginning of something that your heart has to be willing to navigate. It's the beginning of something your heart has to be willing to navigate.
Yeah. Grief is, yeah. Willingness. Yeah, I like that. Yes. And before I let you go, what has your attention been a leader and in your community, excuse me, what has your attention being a leader in your community that you would like to see change and bring further awareness to, whether if that's gun violence or if that's, you coming into the workforce as a nurse? What is something that you would like to see change?
In my community, I would have to absolutely say Ricky Smiley he came up with an analogy when his daughter was injured by gun violence, that we have to fix the house before we can fix the yard. That would be that is the most important thing to me in the community, is that people that look like you and I, that it's beyond a conversation at this point. It's a spiritual cleansing that needs to happen in our communities that changes the way we relate to one another, that gives us a higher moral guide in terms of how we are governing ourselves. And yes, I mean gun violence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was good.
So that's what's most important to me.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Angel, for sharing your day with us. And you, by the way, you have a twin, right?
I do. I have a twin sister. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. I know your mother and your father, they just enjoyed the two of you because
Yeah, we were glad. Yep.
Oh wow. So I have to get a picture definitely because I want to make sure I put her on the reel to showcase the beauty of two of you. And I know she has been going through this journey with you and have had, that so much compassion because you are twins. So I know you guys feel each other's spirit and because I'm sure you're connected so well. So how has that been for the two of you?
It has been, I mean, next to God and my mom, no one has been more supportive. I knew the love was so real. Our birthday was shortly after we laid Myron to rest, and her husband had all of these elaborate plans and she canceled them. She canceled them to be present. She did the same for our first Christmas, and it's now to the point where I have to tell her, hey, I'm okay.
Oh.
You do your duty as a wife, and your ministry to your husband and your family, because it's almost like she wanted to just jump in my skin and take it. Yeah. And I'm like, it just doesn't work that way. Like, this is something I have to go through. I have to navigate on my own. So I view her in a totally different way now. It makes me cherish every moment with not just her, but my family members. Those are the jewels and the gems that I've taken on this transition. I don't take anyone for granted now. Every opportunity to show love, to spread love, that is what brings me joy now.
Oh, wow. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Angel, for sharing your day with me and coming on It's the Miami Night to share your story, which is so powerful. And you left us so many gems so that my Grief Nation listeners can have the ability to heal, learn, and I absolutely changed their lives just simply by your voice. So thank you so much for being on It's the Miami Night show.
And thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it, Grief Nation listeners, and thank you for tuning into another transformative segment on It's the Miami Night Show, Grief Talk. Today, we give thanks filled with love and gratitude for our special guest, Angel Smith, for expressing your very unique grief journey and sharing ways of understanding the healing process. This is your girl, Miami Night, with much love and light until we connect again spiritually. Bye-bye.
Slow-mo. He's got me walking that grief walk. Going slow-mo. He's got me talking that grief talk. Going slow-mo. He's got me clocking the
It's the Miami Night Show.
Hey, yeah. Slow-mo. He's got me walking that grief walk. Going slow-mo. He's got me talking that grief talk. Going slow-mo. He's got me clocking the
What up, tribe? It's Miami Night, your master grief coach. Welcome to the Miami Night Show. You got me walking that grief walk. It's time for Grief Talk, y'all.
I talk about things you think about.
It's Miami Night, your master grief coach.